Hello again, guys. We're here for episode three. I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Jefferson. I won't attempt to pronounce your middle name so I don't butcher it. Ondze Mangha. If I didn't butcher the last, I think it's Duvel. I don't know.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's
exactly what I tell my professors after they butcher my last name.
yeah, pretty close. Close enough. Yeah, it's Duvet, which is close enough to Duvel. So
Oh, okay, okay. So the L is silent.
yeah,
Okay.
it turns into like almost like a yeah sound.
Okay, 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 cool, cool. Um, um, Jefferson is a software developer. He's a part-time model. He's a real estate investor. He's a investor in other things. He's a money manager. He loans money. He's a day trader. He's Did I miss anything? I'll let you introduce yourself.
That's crazy. Like you went through the whole list, man. You have to let the people have some mystery.
But yeah, I'll let
Like
you
you
give a quick intro yourself, real quick.
but yeah, you did a pretty good job on that end. I am a software developer by trade, so that's what I do professionally. I do real estate investments. At least I'm starting to. I do trade in the options market and stock market. I part-time model. I don't know if I'll call myself a model. I think I just what is it called? I like to play dress up,
Okay.
with the camera, with the camera. So that's pretty much the whole list. I try to also help other people through my like loan business that I give out loans. So yeah.
All right, yeah, I was reading that Voyage article that's on your page. It was like really, really insightful. I feel like I knew most of the stuff in there, but there's still like a little tidbit here and there that I learned, and it was like, oh yeah, so that's how that started. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, how did that come about? Like, did they reach out to you, or how did that happen?
Yeah, interesting enough, I received an email and it was from this girl named Kristen from Voyage. She said, "Oh, they're doing like an expose slash article on like interesting figures in the Dallas area." And I was recommended by one of my friends. His name is Neil. Shout out to Neil. But it was unexpected because I wasn't like waiting for something like that. But yeah, so Neil had recommended me, and so I went ahead and did the interview with them and gave them everything they needed, and they wrote the article. But yeah, so it works through like recommendation. Somebody recommends you, and
Oh,
then you
okay,
get you get
okay.
featured on there.
Cool, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Like I was thinking, I don't know if you've. I don't like to assume if you've listened to the first episode, just like yesterday too. My whole idea for this was like, okay, I was gonna try and find people who are like into a lot of different fields, and they would be like the model guests for the show as
Mhm.
aspiring polymaths, quote unquote. So I was thinking, like, who do I know? Who do I know that's into a lot of things? And you're one of. I think I was thinking, and I don't remember what finally led me to you, but I was like, oh wow, yeah, that is true. Like he does this, he does that, he does this, he does this. Like it's like five or six different things, and I was like, okay, yeah, you definitely have to come on the show for sure. Like
Yeah,
that's
man.
that's not even negotiable.
Yeah, I try my best. I'm under belief that if you stop doing things, you're kind of like just ready to die. Like you got to keep doing things while you're alive. So sometimes people pick one thing they want to do and they just do it and get good at it. I get bored easily, so I try to pick a couple of things that I can do well and then just do them the best I can, so I don't
Yeah.
get bored.
Yeah, like yesterday we kind of got distracted from our topic yesterday for this very reason because we were talking about how like there's an argument to be made that you could do all of those things at a competitive level like with very high proficiency. There's no reason why you necessarily have to let some of them suffer in order to do all of them per se. And it's I don't know. I wish maybe we're recording this at a different time because I just recorded that yesterday. It's gonna be up by tomorrow morning, so nobody would have gotten a chance, or at least you wouldn't have gotten a chance to listen to it yet to really understand what I mean when I say we're getting into this yesterday. But it was really interesting. Like we started out like the whole thing. Our topic was supposed to be about music and activism in music, And
Mm.
by the time we
Don't get me
realized we had
started
gone
on
off topic.
activism. Don't get me
Yeah.
started on activism because
Oh yeah.
I've
Okay. You get into that too.
yeah. Like I mean, I've always been passionate about being who I am and being African. Period. In some circles, people call me one Africa because I've really not believed in an African with borders. Right. I believe that we're all one people, and when one of us suffers, we all suffer. So
Yeah,
that one
definitely.
is pretty dear to me. So I
I heard
totally
that recently. Was that at Kyosha's party? Is that where I heard that?
yeah.
Or
Yeah. When I think I was talking about it with somebody, and obviously there's always some of us that are strongly in a belief of where they come from. Like if I'm Nigerian,
yeah.
it's all about like Nigeria. If I'm Congolese, it's all about Congo. But I take that into consideration, but I also believe that as a Congolese person, if Nigeria is suffering, I can't sit there and say, oh well, Congo is going through it too. No, I have to also help, because when my Nigerian brothers and sisters suffer, I'm suffering. When I'm suffering, they're suffering. So you know
Yeah. I mean, at some point we have to kind of realize that the borders that are in place are in a way imaginary. Like they're all
yep.
constructs that somebody came up with, and not even self-determined constructs. It's not even most African countries, at least. I don't want to say all, in case I'm missing a few outliers, but most African countries did not decide on their own borders as they are
Ab-
currently. So it's like, what's the
absolutely.
point of obsessing over them? Never really
Absolutely.
made sense to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree with that. That's one thing we can totally agree on. It's like we didn't set these things. We didn't set these boundaries. We didn't set these protocols. We didn't say, oh, Nigeria begins here and ends here. We didn't say Congo begins here and ends here. Somebody else who does not look like us came over there and decided, you know what? This is what you guys should look like. And it's a very weird thing to see, but it's what's happened. So we can't really dwell on it. We can only kind of look forward and see what we can do to fix that situation. So
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. I don't remember if I have or not, but I always wonder, how did they come up with those shapes? Like, how did we end up with the shape of Nigeria? For like some other countries, it seems almost uniform. Like if you look at a country like maybe Republic of Benin or Cote d'Ivoire, even, like it seems somewhat uniform, somewhat straight lines a little bit. But if you look at a country like Nigeria, it's like, who drew this and why? Like, how did they arbitrarily come up with the shape of this thing? Like, were they drawing lines around certain landmarks or minerals, or how in God's name did they come up with this? It's very
yeah,
fascinating stuff. I always wondered
it's
about.
basically like I mean, if you look at the history of Unilever, who was like basically the Niger company.
Yeah,
So it was kind of like when a company landed there, right? They landed in a certain area and decided, you know what, this part looks nice, we want it, right? And then other people land in a different spot. They say like, oh, this part looks nice, we want it. And then they meet one day. They're like, you know what, we could, make more money if the two of us. And this is not counting the people that already live in that area, but we talk about in the business sense of the.
yeah, the amalgamation we are talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, these two areas, you have these resources, we have these resources. If we put our heads together, we can make more money." So then they come together into one Nigeria, like this, like in the Burna Boy song,
Yeah, yeah,
into
another
one
story.
Nigeria. So they didn't do it because of the people that are living there. They
Yeah,
did it for a business
yeah, of
strategic
course.
point of view. And so that's how you end up with these, borders with people that don't speak the same languages, that don't believe in the same things, that have very cultural differences, because they didn't do it because of the people. They did it because of the amount of money they could make, the ease of travel, trade routes, and stuff like that. And same thing in the Congo. We have two Congos, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right? We
Yeah,
have the Republic and
DRC
the
and
Democratic Republic. Well, most of the central part of the bigger Congo, which is the Democratic Republic, right? The west side of it, and the Congolese people from my Congo, and the Gabonese people and the Angolans are all part of the Bantu people, for example. And then when they came, the French, landed on the border, or like on the river, the Congolese River, where they were like, you know what, this is Congo now, the Republic of Congo. That's how it was founded. But then you had Belgian explorers who landed in the
oh
Democratic Republic
yeah,
of Congo on the other side of the river, and they decided that became their Congo, the Belgian Congo. But even though these people and me, we speak the same languages, have the same cultures, right? We are one people, but yet we're divided into two different countries. So the opposite happened in Nigeria, where they basically turned, like people that were not, not the same people. They decided to put them all in one place. And so
Yeah, basically
the
build a
point,
country going on in Nigeria.
yep, like so it's the kind of like an experiment that they're trying to do, but they didn't really do it for the people. They did it for their money. So that's how you end up with, in my opinion, that's how you end up with these borders and these weird shapes and countries that are in constant turmoil within themselves because all the deals that happened there were business deals and not like for the people.
Yeah, some would argue even like there's like another dimension to it, like beyond coming together for common business interests. There's how do I put it? There's a motivation to keep the countries in turmoil, like you said, like keeping them together. It keeps them basically in constant flux, in chaos. In an instance of that is like during the Biafran War, the Nigerian Civil War, or you might call it, to be more exact. How European powers were basically taking sides, and some had England, for instance, wanted Nigeria to stay. The British Empire wanted Nigeria to stay, remain one country for whatever reason that they had on their end. I believe the French and with Charles de Gaulle and the
Hmm.
Portuguese were supporting Biafra. And in Europe, it's like, yeah, they have some friction, but we're not at war. We're fine. And in Nigeria, they're fighting this proxy war where they're supplying either side with weapons,
Hmm.
food, munitions, any kind of support that they could offer. And it's you have to wonder like why what interest you have in this region, why is England interested in keeping the country together, why are the Portuguese and the French, what are they betting on exactly to happen if Biafra successfully splits from Nigeria, or secedes I should say.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing that when you get the politics of it, because that story, that history has happened all across the African continent. The same story happened in Angola, in the Congo, the
Exactly,
civil
I was
wars.
just thinking of
And
Angola.
so it's like the same playbook they've been using for a while, and it's been successful for them, so that's why they keep using it. But it's become more and more difficult now as technology has evolved and the youth are kind of tired of it, and we see through their BS, you know. So on a political sense, you can go back and dissect all of these things, and you're like, God, they really did a number on this continent, right? And it's even worse because our own people have been brainwashed to the point where we don't notice it. We're so focused on things that, in my opinion, are so useless and baseless that we don't see the true issue and
Yeah.
fix it. And so, man, the politics that we can have this whole episode be about like the African politics and the European influence on the African continent, and and we'll have to have a whole nother episode about other things. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's something that we definitely, and if you read, when you read my article, you can kind of see what I'm trying to do to kind of fix this problem or help my people kind of set themselves free, you know.
Yeah,
And
by the
so
way, if you want people to read the article, you can I don't know, you can mention your handle for Instagram so they can check it out, or if there's some keyword or whatever they can use to search it up on Voyage. I'm still setting up my social media stuff, so I don't really have a place to put all this stuff yet, but you can
yeah, yeah, no
plug in if
problem.
you need to.
Yeah, my Instagram is at Mr_misunderstood. So that's at MR_M1 under STO0D, because
Okay.
somebody else already took like Mr. underscore misunderstood spelled properly. So and even in the show notes, whenever you post it on
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can
You're
actually
right.
you
I
can
can put
actually
it in
show it
there.
on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna point out too because every time I try searching your name, I swear I always forget the
yeah.
misunderstood. It has numbers in it every time. Gets
Yeah,
me every
it's
time.
yeah, I'm gonna try to see, like, I try to check it every so often, see if the other person who has the handle has let it go. So because it used to be even worse. They used to have like two zeros and a three in there. So
Yeah.
it's getting better. It's getting better. But
I
yeah,
wonder
like
if
in the article, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go on, go on, go on. That was just a
Yeah.
random thought. Go on.
Like in the article, it talks about like Bantu and Ukwaji, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to create an environment where because the thing about Africa right now, while we're kind of slowing down, is because there's no democratized private sector. You know, I want to take Nigeria for example because one of my launching areas was Nigeria and Ghana. Now I'm not Nigerian, so all the Nigerians listening might be like, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about," blah 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 blah. But I've done my research in Nigeria, so let's use Nigeria because whether anybody likes it or not, Nigeria is should be Africa's first superpower.
Yeah, it
you
should
know,
be.
Population wise, 230 million people. Uh, it has evolved so much faster than some other countries. South Africa is doing great, but I think Nigeria is really where the heart of Africa is. And after that, you have like Democratic Republic of Congo because it has the world's largest deposit of coltan. But
Resources.
yeah, we can get
Yeah,
to
not
that
just
later.
that even. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in Nigeria, for example, like getting business started, it's so difficult. You have to know somebody. You have to know somebody higher up because all of the richer businessmen have been working with the not really necessarily by choice, but you have a bunch of like regulators that know, for example, not to f with Dangote.
Oh, did you
So
see that video? Did you watch that video?
yes, and I
Ah,
saw it, and I was like, this is the kind of stuff I've been talking to my friends about for ages.
yeah,
They know not to f with Adeleke. They know not to f with certain people, right?
yeah,
And so then they will go f with the smaller guys, and those guys will go out of business because the regulators are not giving them any leeway. So
yeah,
the idea of Ukuaji was basically to alleviate that because we know these people, we know the regulators, we know, like earlier this year we were supposed to have, like a call or a meeting with the minister of the Bank of Industries of Nigeria, right? So we can kind of like start building that network of higher up members in the government, in the banking industry in Nigeria, so that way that whenever people come onto our platform with their business ideas, to get help from us through investments and stuff, they don't have to worry about who they need to know, right?
yeah,
They just have to worry about getting their business on there. We worry about who they need to know. We take care of that. They get financial backing through investments, and that's money directly to the people, to the entrepreneurs, and
yeah,
they do their business. So it's democratizing the way people invest in Nigeria, in Ghana, and hopefully the rest of Africa, where you don't have to worry about the money going through a government, having to know government regulators and entities and know somebody in government to get your plan across
yeah.
because we are taking care of that. So that's one way I think we can alleviate that problem and kind of democratize the investment, what you call it.
What was the name of your company again, just for the
It
listeners?
it's called Ukwaji, which is the word growth in Swahili.
By the way, you guys can find that in the Voyage article as
Yep,
well.
precisely,
Yeah.
precisely.
That's a really good, very helpful angle because one thing I don't know, most if you're not from Nigeria, you probably don't know this, but even I grew up in Nigeria and sometimes I hear some of the stuff that sounds normal to people there and it's like what even is this? You have to pay the tax duty, this duty, that duty.
Hmm.
Like even if you're like you're a landlord and you're renting out a place or something, I think you have to pay duties on that too. It's like how do people even keep track of all these things? It's
Exactly.
so much runaway bureaucracy is ridiculous. I don't even understand how any one person, any normal person on the street, is able to keep track of all this. It's almost like you're necessarily going to be in violation of one thing or the other, and that allows those
Precisely.
regulators to do what they want to do, basically, which is extort people.
Precisely, precisely. And they do that because you're too small. But if you get a company like ours, we're going to have some financial backing, you know, and then we're going to try to get some political allies, which we have a couple so far, right? When we get to a point where they can't just come and tell us, oh, this member no, these people that are adding their companies on your business, they're like, not they're in violation of certain laws, then we can be like, you know what? You need to go check with your higher ups because we've already gone through this. We've got the paperwork for it, and they have exemptions or any of that. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure we can kind of alleviate that pain from the entrepreneurs because, man, Nigeria has some of the brightest people. You know, I through my project, I've been able to talk to and try to connect with people that are like very intelligent. We're talking, engineers that are building technology that we think is like something that's going to come in the next 100 years, but they're already working on it now. You know,
Yeah.
but they have no exposure. They don't know where to go. They have no money to help their ideas across. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of untapped talent in Africa in general.
Hmm.
It's just it's sad, especially in a place like Nigeria. Like this tackles one of the biggest issues with starting a business in Nigeria. There are a couple others, like
Hmm.
the larger corruption issue, even though this is a subset of that issue. Electricity, like I was just saying today, a video of an electric car Hyundai was debuting in Nigeria, and I'm like, that's great, but if I lived in Nigeria and I bought this, where would
How
I
will I
charge
charge it?
my car? And it's funny because it's like, how are you guys like the government is trying to paint this as a win, like, oh yeah, look at this, but you haven't fixed the electricity problem in a long time. It's almost like it's not even, I don't know, it's sad. Like we're still using hydroelectric dams that have been around since the early 60s. Even before that, I think I think at least one of them, Kainji Dam, at least was built before that or around that time, anyways. So this is like, wow. I used to say 40 years back in the day, but this is 60 years now. It's going on 60 years now. Those dams have been
And
our major source of power.
you know what the most incredible thing is, that there's literally we can there can be a hydro dam built in the center of Africa that can power literally half of the countries on the continent,
Yeah,
on the
and
Congolese River.
another sad part is like whenever they when they privatize part of the power industry, we could see that there are areas of Lagos, for instance, where people basically don't quote me on this. I haven't actually lived in Lagos in a long time, but I hear, at least from my parents and other people, that they basically have almost uninterrupted electricity. So
Same
it
thing
can
in the
be
Congo as
done.
well.
It
Hmm.
can be done. It's not that it can't be done. It's just incompetence or willful corruption on the government's part that's
It's both.
preventing it from happening.
Not even or. It's both. It's incompetence and willful ignorance. Willful corruption. It's both. No, it's so like, because at the end of the day, right? A lot of countries are corrupt, right? But they can be competent enough where the people that are living in that country don't even understand the corruption of the country. We live
Yeah.
in a right now. We live in the U.S. It's a very corrupt nation, right? But we don't really
Yeah.
care about it because we got 24-hour energy. We can find jobs. We can go to school. We don't care too much about it. You
Yeah.
know. So I think it's like you said. It's a competence. Not only are they uh, willfully corrupt, they're also incompetent. So it shows their corruption.
Yeah.
So,
It's
but
I don't know. It's a sad story, but like I said, maybe let's delve into that some more another
yeah,
episode.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, my idea is I don't really want to be restricting these episodes. I want them to be organic. I want them to kind of go
Yeah,
with the flow of where we go while still trying to touch on the things that we wanted to touch on. Maybe yesterday we didn't do such a good job of that. We are probably like 40 minutes in when we realized we haven't said anything about music. So I said, okay, we'll just leave it for next weekend. We'll talk about music next weekend, and we went another
mhm,
20 minutes.
mhm.
But yeah, what are you saying?
That's how the mind works now. You talk about certain things and you just realize, hey, the conversation just keeps moving towards other things, and you carry on. So
Yeah, before I even forget, that reminds me. I was going to say something about Uganda. Well, no, not Uganda, Angola. When you mentioned Angola earlier, like Angola is a wonderful example of what we were talking about earlier. What European powers were able to
mhm.
do in the structuring of that country and the corruption that came about as a result. I didn't really know that much about it until there's this book I read. The main reason why I wanted to mention is I wanted to mention the book. It's called you might have read it. It's called The Looting Machine. Wonderful, wonderful book that touches on Angola and Nigeria specifically, amongst other African countries. And the similarities are insane. It was
Mhm.
just a lot of similarities between both. So it just shows the common thread that's running across African nations that are basically sabotaged even before the country had a chance to get on its feet. But I just wanted to put that out there. If anybody wants to read it, it's called The Looting Machine. I don't remember who it's by, but if you just look on Amazon or something, you should be able to find it.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
Anything that involves the British, the French, and the Portuguese, just know. It's a looting machine, man. The Fr-
Yeah,
the
don't
British a little bit better than the French. I'm gonna be honest with you.
really.
Every colony of the British does better than the French. The French are just, man. I don't want to use these words, but they're just
Okay,
pigs.
now they are right because when I read about colonial history, typically even in the Americas here with Native Americans, the French seem to have a better reputation for dealing with natives.
Yeah,
But then
because
after
the French didn't.
colonization, they got mad and they just destroyed everything and they just decided they're going to sabotage all their former colonies.
So that's what I'm saying. So the French came in with like, oh, we're cool with the natives, but they never really did that for the natives. They did that out of spite of the British.
Oh yeah, that's a good
So,
point.
when they were fine with the natives, it was so the natives can help them fight off the British and take over the British
Yeah.
colonies. After the natives helped them, if the French had won, trust me, they
Oh
wouldn't
yeah,
have
like
survived.
the French Indian Wars and
Yeah.
others
So
here.
yeah, if you look at all these colonies, anywhere the French stepped foot, got screwed up big time. Name me a successful French colony. You wouldn't.
Yeah, they keep them down. I mean, England does similar things, but more covert. Whereas
Yep.
with France, it's almost amazing that some of the things that they do don't make it to front page news. I mean, I'm sure it's not an accident, but I have a friend. She's Ivorian, and some of the things she told me about stuff that's happened in Cote d'Ivoire. It's
Mhm.
amazing that all this stuff happens and we're not even aware of it.
Precisely. Precisely. So yeah,
It's
the French are different. They're a different beast. A totally different beast.
not to
And
mention the colonial tax.
yep. And like, how are you gonna go into somebody's country, colonize them, and then you give them independence? You tell them they have to pay you for their independence. Do people understand how much of a psychological f up that is? I don't know if I can curse on your podcast, but
We already
like
broke that barrier yesterday.
that is like a colossal f up. Like, bro, imagine I come into your house, right? You live in this house, bro. I come into your house and I say, you know what? This house now belongs to me, right? So I help you maybe paint the walls, right? I help you maybe fix the floor, and then I lived there for 60 for 100 plus years, right? I'm taking stuff from your home. I'm collecting fees. I'm collecting whatever your house makes. And then I give you your independence. And I say you have to pay me for giving me your independence in your own house.
You miss one part. It's like you give the independence, quote unquote, and then as you're leaving, you destroy the walls and the
Bro,
floor. You paint.
bro, I
You
destroyed
destroy
the
them anyway.
padlock so anybody can come and steal, right? And then I put in a maid who answers to me, like the presidents of those
Yeah,
presidents. I put in a maid who only does what I say, who doesn't care about your well-being, doesn't clean the house, doesn't fix the walls, doesn't fix the door. All the maid does is whatever you cook, she takes it and sends it to me. You know?
pretty much.
And then I say you have to pay me taxes as well. Like nobody else gets that. Nobody else understands that this is a colossal f up. Like how? Who gave them the moral authority to
It
even like it's a very if you think about it long enough, you really get upset. You're like, damn,
is very sinister. Like even beyond that, the idea that a lot of these countries are still using francs. If I'm
bro.
not mistaken, they're
Frank
using
Stefan,
francs, and
Frank
they have to
Stefan
keep a portion of their reserve
in French
with
banks.
in French banks. Like it's so evil. Like
Ha-
it's geniusly evil. If geniusly is even a word. Like who came
bro,
up with this? Like this is the kind of thing. Like if I was playing Age of Empires or something,
bro,
like this is the
exactly.
kind
Like
of thing I would do to other.
some evil shit
The kind of thing.
that
That's how evil it is. Like who came
and
up with this?
it's so evil and they've brainwashed people so well that they don't see something wrong with it like a whole other country and then they run the world like I don't get into conspiracy and stuff but like the World Bank wouldn't recognize like a currency from the Congo for example if they create their own currency. Why?
Yeah,
Because it's led by the French, the Americans, the British, the Russians, the Chinese, and it's like,
yeah.
yo, who gave you that power, like, who are you to determine what I do in my country? Like, it's some very incredible bullshit, basically. But that's on that basically. I can't if I go too far, it becomes very upsetting. Like nobody can
I, I
understand it.
I
I
get
can't
what you
understand
mean.
it.
I get a little bit of what you mean. A small portion of what you mean.
Yeah,
I
I don't get
mean,
it. Makes no sense, but we live underneath it. It's something.
Unfortunately, it kind of makes sense. It's evil beyond evil, but without those colonies, like France is nothing without
In
those colonies. Like,
absolutely nothing,
what was his name that
absolutely
said that
nothing.
again? Jean was it Jean Chirac, or I think he used to be a former president of France.
That's it. Africa has no place in world history.
No, 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 not that. He
Oh,
said without the French colonies,
France
France
would
would
be
slide
nothing.
into a third world power or something like that. He said,
Absolutely. It
and
would
he's
be,
absolutely right.
they would be speaking German right now.
Like it's
We had them colonies.
yeah, that's a whole other topic by itself. That's a whole other topic by itself.
Uh,
Like, you know, a lot of people don't know that African soldiers fought in the world wars. Like
man,
a lot of people. I
man.
mean, if you really think about it, I think most people understand from a common sense point of view that okay, it's a world war they must have, but they don't know. Like they haven't
When
heard
you
anything about it or
when
anything
you're
like
taught world history in school, they tell you about all the Western Front and the Eastern Front in Europe. They don't tell you about the Southern Front in Africa or none of that. They don't tell you that crap because they don't want you to learn that history. You know, history is won by is written by the victors, and in this case, Africans, even though they won the war, they were not the ones that were writing the history books because Africa fought the world wars. They were part of it. They were intertwined. They don't tell you about the fronts in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in Northern Africa. They don't tell
yeah.
you about all those things. So, but man,
Yeah, Northern Africa is mentioned a little bit, but they tend to focus on Patton and what's
yeah,
his name, the German guy Rommel. They don't really go into any of the other stuff that the African soldiers actually did. But anyways,
yeah.
let's
We
leave
digress
politics.
on the African topic. We have to move away from the African topic.
Yeah, but going on to like software development, like how did you get into that? Like for people who don't know, I know some of that is mentioned in your article. If I was like if I was 15, a 15-year-old right now, I'm in high school or whatever, or maybe I'm 20 and I'm in college, whatever, and I wanted to get into software development, like first you can tell us like how you got started, and then give like a short blueprint. Like, what would you advise for somebody that wants to get started?
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's a huge jump from talking about African problems to software development. But hey, they're all intertwined, all right? Because if you understand kind of what I do, you understand why I work on Ukuaji and stuff. But I got into software development back in 2015. It was my sophomore year in college. I had always been like one of those smart kids in high school. I got to college paid for by scholarships and financial aid, and so I didn't really spend money on my undergrad. But my first year, I did pretty well. I should say my first semester in college, I did very well. I was in the top 2% of the class. I was killing it with my grades. But, getting into my second and third semester, some stuff happened, personal stuff, and I was going through it. And my grades were tanking to the point where, like, my advisor was like, "Hey, you are about to go on academic probation. You need to like figure this out quick," you know. So I went ahead and took academic probation over staying for an extra because if I had not taken the academic probation, I would have been put on like leave if I didn't do well the next semester. So I took the academic probation for a semester. So, by being me, I couldn't really just like stay down.
Yeah,
So I decided to take some classes at community college, like philosophy classes and stuff. While I was doing that, I was also working at Whataburger. So I was working at Whataburger, and out of chance, one of my best friends in high school messages me. He's like, "Hey, uh, there's this lady. She needs a website. I don't know if you build websites or not, but you're really good with computers." So I was like, "Maybe you do." So I give her your information. So she calls me, and I didn't know how to program at this point. But I mean, I was pretty good at just planning stuff out and business planning and strategizing. So I met this lady. Her name was Jennifer. I met her up at her house, and we're talking about her business. And I'm working on a website, which at this point was just a normal drag and drop, like Wix type website.
yeah, I
So
remember those.
so I'm helping her work on it, and she's paying me here and there, and she was very nice, and she was like pushing me like, "Man, you're really good at this. You should start a business." So I was like, "You know what? Why not?" So I registered my first company, which was called Gibble, Gybol, Get Your Business Online. So
Simple and straight to the point.
straight to the point. So I started like programming a little bit, in HTML and CSS, which is not really programming. So I picked up JavaScript, which is more like actual programming, and I was enjoying it, man. Like just writing a piece of code on a notepad text file and seeing it show up on a browser was pretty cool. And at the time, I was studying like microbiology, genetic engineering. So I started kind of seeing parallels between the human body and computer programming because you're just giving instructions, just like DNA gives our body instructions. So I started going to Barnes and Noble, reading programming books, watching YouTube videos, and that's pretty much how I got into software development. Just kind of that whole journey. I remember I picked up my very first client for a website. It was like a $15,000 website, and I
Oh
built it.
wow.
Yeah, I built it in like 3 months. And I was like, God, I can actually make money out of this thing,
Yeah.
and so I kept pushing it. I kept pushing it. I learned server side scripting with PHP. Then I got into C sharp, building my very first Access database, and then I just kept going. Then I learned Java, I learned Python, and right now I'm actually a, a PHP developer for an energy consulting firm. So that's how I got into software development. Just self teaching, YouTube, books. I used to like go to Barnes and Noble, open up a book, read it, and take a picture of where I left off because I couldn't afford the book. You know, my
I
account
saw
will
that in
be
the article.
my account will be an overdraft literally like that whole week, and like, but it was tough because I was also like, this is like depression territory. I like to think of myself like I will never get depressed, but at that point I can kind of see I might have been depressed because my brain was like on overtime working, trying to figure out how I can get out of this hole. And
Yeah.
being an African man, you can't really show weakness. We've all been there where you really can't show weakness. You have to be strong the whole time. And so I kind of persevered through that. And through running my own business, my web development business, I started learning about money, just learning how money works. And then that opened up a whole world for me. Investments, real estate, all started from me just learning how to be a software developer. Because at that point, I had to be my own accountant, I had to be my own lawyer, I had to be my own business consultant. So those kind of skills broadened my view and getting into investments and stuff. So, but
Yeah, that's good.
for anybody trying to get into software development right now, for a 15-year-old, I'd say my route was pretty easy in a sense. Like, just find a passion in it, find a use in it, right? Don't necessarily do it for the money, but do it because you actually like it. Learn how to program. Learning how to program is pretty easy. I think the human brain is wired to be a programmer. And so open up a book, learn about functions, methods. You take your normal daily task. One of my very first project was like create a human being, right? Human being with functions. So the human being sleeps, wakes up, drinks, eats, pees, poops, walks, runs. And so I created a human being that had all those functions. And then I said in the morning when I'll run a script. If the time says 12 a.m. or sorry, 12 p.m., eat lunch. So I'll run the eat lunch method. So it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of have to
Yeah.
find a passion in it. And then for a 20-year-old who's in college, I would say pick a field in it, right? Software engineering might be a little bit far off because I don't have a bachelor's or a master's degree in software development or software engineering. So most of my work comes from experience. And in my opinion, experience always trumps a bachelor's degree anytime, especially in the software development world, you
Yeah.
know? So, but if you're a 20-year-old, don't be afraid to like not only take your software engineering classes, but don't just let that be the only thing you do that's software engineering related. Like
Yeah.
on your own time, do small projects, even if they're not going to be used anywhere. Build a to-do list application. Build I don't know, uh, a simple API application. Join a startup that might not pay you nothing. That might pay you $0 or $10 here and there, but join it and build a product because that shows your experience and you'll get much better at it than somebody who just goes to class, does the assignments, and then calls it a day. I've
Yeah.
seen I've seen that play out so many times. People that have a bachelor's degree in software development that have the hardest times finding a job because all they did was do assignments. They never
Yeah. I think
build.
that. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, they never built like a real world application, and that limits
Yeah,
them.
I think that's what separates like people who are getting started from learning from people who go the whole 9 yards and actually get really good at it, finding projects to do. Because I remember that happened to me at some point too. Like I got started with Python. I learned how to use the functions, the loops, the everything, functions, loops, methods, all of that stuff. And at some point, it was like, okay, now what? What do I what
What
do
do
I
I
do
do with
now?
this?
Like every now and then I'll think up some small project and be like, okay, I'll do this. I'll make a wedding list or something like that. And you can add and remove yourself from the list, that kind of thing. But it wasn't until I really got into networking that I started to find other applications that actually interested me. Like something that's really big in networking now is network automation. A lot of people are using Python to
Hmm.
basically push commands to routers and switches. Like you
Hmm.
can go on a router and you can type the commands in, put in the configuration you want. But what happens when you have 1,000 routers on your network? Like
Hmm.
nobody's about. I mean, some people still do that. Some people still do that stuff. It's ridiculous. But automation is getting rid of that. It's basically, I don't want to say it's taking people's jobs because somebody has to create those scripts, I guess. But it's basically changed the way things are done. You're pushing all these configs at once to thousands of devices on your network, for instance. So
Yeah.
that really got raised my interest in Python again, and it's like, okay, this is interesting. This is something I can actually use for. I mean, not that there weren't purposes or uses for Python before, but my challenge was always finding a project that actually interested me instead of building wedding lists for imaginary weddings. So like you
Yeah.
said, like the important thing is for somebody to find there's always something. There's something in your life right now that you
Hmm.
can automate with Python. Like sometimes even at work, I work with what is it, JSON files. Like we're getting automated scripts. Sometimes they spit out JSON files, and the other guys at work, I'm gonna assume that they don't know any programming. I don't know, but I'm assuming that. So sometimes you get the JSON file and it's like this long list of information showing if the servers we work with still in warranty or whatever. And sometimes they're like going one by one by one by one to take this information and put it into Excel file, take this information, put it in Excel file. And one day I was like, huh, there has to be a faster way to do this. And I just searched online, did some research, and was able to write some Python code to take it from JSON to CSV directly and create a
Hmm.
CSV file for me. And here's the interesting part. Like I showed these guys, hey, look at this. Like, look at this stuff. I mean, my code is not the most elegant. So I'm gonna be honest. Like, instead of just being able to do what you want, like you would either have to like navigate to the directory or you would have to put in the whole path of the JSON file in order for it to work. That was how I wrote it, and I didn't really care to go any deeper than that. I thought that was well enough for what I wanted to do. But I showed them like, hey, you don't have to do this shit. You don't have to do this stuff anymore. Like, look at this stuff. You can just run it and put the path, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. And they still went back to doing what they wanted to do, what they've been doing anyways. And it was just like it just opened my eyes to something like some people really don't necessarily care about doing some things more efficiently. Like for them, as long as they're at work, they work their 8 hours, they do what they're supposed to do to some level, and they collect their paycheck. They're
Yep.
fine. Like really,
Yep.
they don't care about making it more efficient. And maybe that's part of what's standing in some people's way of finding these projects that you can basically use to get better, use as a stepping stone to get better.
Yeah, that's precisely it. There's a saying: "Give the laziest man the hardest job, because they will find the best and most efficient way to do it." You know,
Yeah,
I,
I heard that from Bill Gates. I don't know if he plagiarized it or not.
no, I mean, I'm sure it's probably somebody said. It's probably Bill Gates or somebody or Warren Buffett, one of those people, right? And I agree with that because, like, I think I'm the laziest, the most hardworking person I know. Like I work hard, I do a lot of things, but I think it's because I'm lazy and I find the easiest ways to do them, and I automate them, and I make
Yeah.
them more efficient. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I completely understand that. I think I'm very similar too, because this is one issue my mom and I always like, we always butt heads over this issue because I'm very, very, I won't even say that I'm lazy, even though some people might say I'm lazy. I won't even say that. What I'll say is I hate doing things inefficiently. Like I there's nothing that irks me more than having to do something in the most inefficient manner possible. Like when there's a much more efficient way to do it. And this is like my mom is kind of like a do it my way or we don't do it at all kind of person. And that's what causes the friction. Like sometimes I'm like, but we could do it like this and get it done in 30 minutes. But her from her point of view, it's like, why are you being lazy? Like just do it. Does it matter?
But I think it was Burna Boy that said it, right? No, I think it was Fela Kuti. He says African people smile in what uh what was it?
Suffering and
In
smiling is like
suffering, yeah, suffering and smiling. We want to find the hardest. Like for some reason, we must suffer to do something. Have you ever realized that?
like when I was your age going to school,
Yes,
like
like
I had
why
to
must
fight
I
the
walk to
crocodiles.
school with while it's raining without an umbrella? Why is that an epitome of me being successful? You know, you don't see white people saying, "Oh, when I was young, I was climbing mountains to make it to my school." No, but us, we have to suffer. So
I think there's something about life that they kind of misconstrue, and
yeah.
I don't know. At my young age, maybe that sounds a little bit smacks of hubris a little bit, but I think it's in life you need struggle to grow. But I think they misconstrue struggle for suffering. I don't think they're necessarily the same thing. Like
Mhm, mhm,
you as a PHP developer right now, you can sit in your home office at home working on a very tough problem that you're trying to do
mhm,
for some innovation in your office, and
mhm.
that's a form of struggle. Like
In
you
indeed.
don't need somebody flogging you.
Exactly,
There's somebody
exactly.
flogging
That
you in order
that's
for it to be
precisely
struggle.
it.
You don't need that physical suffering for it to be struggle. Like
Yeah,
the mental challenge alone is a
I
form of
totally agree.
struggle. It's
I
a better form of struggle even.
yeah, I totally agree. Like they want suffrage to be no, not suffrage. Suffrage is a good thing. They want suffering to be part of the struggle. You know,
That suffering is a good thing.
suffrage is the
Yeah,
word
yeah, I
of
know.
note.
I know, I know. I heard what you said. It was just funny, like, oh no, I hope they don't think I'm saying suffering.
Yeah, suffrage is a good thing. Suffering is not a good thing for my 10-year-olds listening. Because I know when I was young, I used to have a problem with those two words. What do you mean, women's suffrage? You know,
I
but
mean, what was your first language? Was your first language French?
technically, my first language was my tribal languages, but my
Okay.
first like national and international language of like education and learning was French.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that would explain why you. I mean,
Mhm.
not necessarily. So even some English speakers have trouble with that. English is
Yeah.
not the most intuitive language ever.
Fun fact. Fun fact. English is highly influenced by French because England was at some point conquered by the French. So
As a person that I love English history, I will take slight offense. That I
well,
mean,
guess what?
they're conquered
Guess
by
what?
Normandy, not
Hey,
so.
hey, what does Normandy speak?
The Duke of Normandy conquered
Yeah.
England. Fun
Uh-huh. And
fact:
what
anybody
did
who's
they speak?
interested
What did they speak?
In English history. I mean, I guess they spoke a
They speak
dialect of
what?
French.
Uh-huh.
They spoke a dialect of French. But yeah, English is heavily influenced by French
In
and
Latin and
Danish,
yeah,
French, Danish, Latin. So there's a mishmash of stuff inside
yeah.
of English.
You should
It's
have seen
just
me when I first came to the US learning English, man. I was like, you guys are spelling color wrong. But
but they are spelling color wrong. It still disturbs me to this very day.
yeah.
Like in England or Nigeria, for instance, we would spell color with the U,
Yep.
like COLOUR. Whereas here, it took me the longest time to get used to that. It's
Man,
all
I
kinds of
still
things.
spell it
Color center. Say
yeah,
again.
I still spell it COLOUR, bro. I
Yeah,
I
sometimes
will
I
wait for
forget
a
my.
day. Yeah, I will wait for a day that a teacher will come and correct me. Maybe like, no, you're wrong. Oh man.
Oh god, like there's all sorts of words like that, and I wonder, is it like did somebody just think this is just too difficult? Let me spell it that way, or I don't know, like
America
color
does not want to
center.
be anything like it's Mother Nation. They decided to drive on the right side of the street instead of the left side. They really wanted to spite the British in everything,
Yeah, tea and coffee, and
everything.
I don't know. I wonder if they were all intentional. Like even words like aluminum, for instance, like they changed the spelling. It's like somebody thought, nah, that's too confusing. We're just gonna
That,
change
that,
it.
that's too much.
But we'll leave sodium and all the others,
Yeah,
and
that
and magnesium, and I don't know, weird stuff.
yeah, that's English for you, man. That's American English and British English. So the Queen's
Yeah, fun
English.
thing, I don't even know what my first language was. I'm not sure if it was my tribal language or if it was English. Because when I was, I know when I was as little as 2, I could speak both of them, but I don't know which one I learned first. And now I'm much better at speaking English. I mean, my accent is not that good in my tribal language. I speak it, but my accent is not the best because there's not a lot of people to talk to these
Yeah,
days.
yeah, man.
But
Yeah,
it's a very interesting topic. I really do not know which was my first language.
yeah. Now, my first was definitely my tribal language because when I was born during the Congolese. Like the tail end ish of the Congolese Civil War. Not really the tail end, honestly. March was not the tail end, but I was born during one of the Congolese Civil Wars, and so while my parents had to leave the city and go to the village, so I grew up in the village, and
Mm,
you know I was speaking the tribal languages. I was speaking my dad's tribal language, my mom's tribal language, and then so as as a 2 year old, I was speaking two languages already. And then I moved to the city when I was 5 years old. That's when I learned the national language of the Congo, which is Lingala, not even French, because I didn't even speak Lingala first. I spoke the tribal languages. Then I got to the city. That's when I started speaking Lingala, started learning Lingala, and then I started school the same year I got to to the city, which I was like 5. I might have been like 4 years old. It was towards my 5th birthday. So I started school, and that's when I started learning French as well.
hmm,
So
interesting.
yeah.
So this Lingala, is it like a language from one of the tribes, or how does that work? I know in Ghana they have a similar. And if you're Ghanaian, please don't shoot me. It's my
Tree.
understanding that Twi is like the official Ghanaian native language, but it's not. There are other languages. It's not the only one. So I
Yeah,
don't know if it's like a similar thing happening.
it's almost a similar thing. Lingala is actually very similar to Swahili. Most people don't really know that, but like the way Swahili is to Kenyans and like some other Congolese people on the northeast side of the Democratic Republic of Congo, that's how
Yeah,
Lingala is. Because Lingala is actually technically an international language because my Congo speaks Lingala, the other
and the
Congo
other
speaks
Congo.
Lingala. And the reason why it's because it comes from the dialects of the Bantu people, right? The Kikongo and all of these other tribal languages. And so Lingala spawns from that.
Huh,
And
interesting.
so yeah,
So
the
they
whole
have the
country,
same proto language.
yep. And so we can actually communicate with them. That's why like that line of division between the two Congos is very problematic because there's a group of people that are the same people that they decided to cut in half.
Yeah, I
So
think the same thing happened all over. Like,
yeah.
if I'm not wrong, the same thing happened with Yoruba people. I think in Republic of Benin, there are people just on the other side of the border who speak the language as well.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. It's a whole mess. It's a
But yeah.
whole mess that
So
have
when I
made
got to
all of.
the city, that's when I learned Lingala and French. And then from there, when I came to the US, this is where I learned English. And I tried to teach myself German. Needless to say, it didn't work out as well, but I know a little bit. I can carry a small, how are you doing conversation and what have you been up to conversation. And then I also try to teach myself like Portuguese and Italian and Spanish. I can understand a lot more Spanish than like basically I can listen to a conversation in Spanish and know what they're talking about, but I can't answer it back.
Mm. So
So
you speak at least 5 languages right now
yes,
by my count.
yes,
You speak
hmm
5 languages well,
hmm
not counting the other
fluently,
ones that you have. Yeah, fluently, not counting the other ones that you have some intermediate experience in.
pretty much, pretty much.
Yeah, Spanish is kind of simple. I feel like I can understand Spanish conversations when they're not talking too fast. But when they get to talking fast, it's like I can't even decipher what's going on anymore.
Yeah, very true, very
It's
true.
one of those things where you need more speaking experience. I need to go to, I don't know, where would I even go? Maybe Colombia or something, and just
Yeah,
leave myself there for 2 months or something.
you jump the whole country of Mexico. You go straight to Colombia.
Yeah, because I have a preference for certain kinds of Spanish. Like
Oh,
I love Colombian Spanish. I kind of like the Spanish spoken in Spain, but I think I prefer Colombian Spanish to that one, and the Mexican Spanish. Like I don't know if you've seen. Obviously, you've seen Narcos. You must have seen Narcos.
Of course,
Like
of
if you
course.
watch Narcos and you watch Narcos Mexico, there's a difference. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've ever known.
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
difference. Like the
I mean,
Colombian Spanish is just so much more. I don't even know what word to use. Like there's so much more flair to it. Maybe that's the word. So much more flair to it.
okay, okay. That's cool. That's understandable. But yeah,
Yeah.
man, that's kind of how them languages have worked. But yeah, I picked up English pretty quick when I came to the US. I was 12 years old, and like within 3 months I was speaking the language.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think that some of that experience from learning it definitely does. I think that experience from learning previous languages
yeah,
transfers over. Like
I,
every additional language is easier than the last to pick up.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, there's some brain chemistry or brain wiring involved with that. But anyways, we're approaching 1 hour pretty fast here. Do you wanna anything else that you're working on you wanna share before we
Uh,
head off?
I mean, obviously, we're working on Scholar Club. I don't know if the audience knows Scholar Club, but
No,
check it out.
they've not been introduced yet.
Yeah, they will be introduced some other time, but Scholar Club is obviously on the list. I'm working on Ukuaji, as I said. I'm also working on something that if any of your listeners are like Laravel developers and PHP developers, they can hit me up on. It's a platform for African youth political parties. So uh, I can
Oh yeah,
tell all,
that's really interesting.
yeah, I can't say all the details, but basically, it's a platform that allows all African youth, not just Nigerian, not just Ghanaian, not just Congolese, to basically go on a platform, sign up with their countries of origin, and then be able to like connect politically, make their political voice heard as a diaspora to make changes into the country and maybe select their own delegates to run in these countries.
Yeah.
So that's going to
So
be
kind of a Pan African party almost.
exactly, exactly. So the name is the Youth Political Parties of Africa. And then obviously you have the youth political parties of Nigeria, youth political parties of Ghana, youth political parties of Congo, right? But the platform is the youth political parties of Africa because the African Union is useless, as they
It's
say,
more than useless. It's almost detrimental even.
honestly, So it seems to be useless. So I'm basically trying to create an African Union that's digital, that knows no boundaries, and it's the youth that are leading it. So
Makes sense. Makes sense. Like that's a very interesting project. That's a very interesting project. Where do you tend to find partners for these Pan African projects?
Uh, I mean, I usually don't find partners to work with it. I mean, if I don't get anybody to help me create the platform, any of that, I just use my network, my LinkedIn. You can see some of my networks on my LinkedIn, but I try to
Yeah.
connect with some innovative African people. There's this man that I met in December last year in New York. His name was Chike Ukwegu. He was literally the youngest uh, the youngest person to run for presidency in 2014, 2015 in Nigeria when Buhari won.
Really?
Yeah, and not that many people, like if I asked you, you wouldn't know who he was.
Nope. Never heard of it.
Imagine when he was doing his campaign, if we had this type of platform and he could
Yeah.
appeal to us as the youth of Nigeria, the youth of Africa, you know?
And that would have been a good time too. 2015 would have been a good time for
Exactly.
that.
So like
But now is an even better time. 2023 would be an even better time.
those are the type of people that I connect with and contact to kind of get them on the project and get stuff done. But most of the times, I don't really find other software developers that have the passion to use their skills to actually make change. Some of them just want to get paid, like, and I don't blame
Yeah.
them, to each their own, right? But if they're not getting paid, they don't want to do it, you know.
Yeah.
So
I was even gonna ask you, like, this reminds me. There's this guy. He's actually Congolese too. His name is Hamish Ganga, I believe. Have you ever heard of him?
no.
I found him on Instagram. He's really into like African initiative stuff
Hmm.
and empowerment, that kind of thing. I thought he was one you were gonna mention actually because he lives in New York. So I was like, oh wow, you actually. I thought that's who you were about to mention. And he's actually somewhat involved with. I don't know if you've heard about this Wakanda City project that they're building in or planning to build in Ghana. It's supposed to be like a city for the return that they've been working on doing in Ghana for descendants of African slaves to return to the African continent. So he's involved in a whole bunch of stuff like that. He's involved in finance as well. He's always basically looking for stuff to do for the community. Very interesting guy. You should look him up on Instagram.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. I might even hit him up because that's interesting to kind of because I mean the goal is to strengthen the African continent, the African youth, and the African people because Africa is the foundation upon which the rest of the world is built, and I'm really interested in shaking that foundation. You know,
It's about time. It's
yeah,
about time. It's shaking. Let me see if I can find his handle here. His page is really interesting. I thought for sure you would know him because he's Congolese. Yeah, his Instagram handle is Hamish Africa. It's or is it Hamish? I don't know. Hamish Africa. Hamish Africa. Hopefully everybody can spell Africa.
okay. Hamish Africa, I see him. I see him.
Yeah,
Okay,
very interesting guy.
just got there. That's cool. That's cool. But yeah, I'll definitely hit him up.
All right, cool, cool. Well, thanks for coming on. This has been very interesting. We'll have to dedicate another episode to African politics and history, Pan African history, and all of that stuff. That deserves at least one or two episodes
Absolutely,
unto
man.
itself.
Absolutely. It,
And this episode should be airing. I can't decide when to put it out yet because I'm gonna put one out tomorrow morning. So I don't know. Maybe next weekend I'll put this one out.
yeah,
Or
I recommend doing like a weekly episode if
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, thanks for coming on, Jeff. This has been great. I'm sure Kirsten has been rubbing her hands like Rick Ross, ready to listen to this episode. I told her we were gonna record this today, and she's been so excited about it. I'm sure she's sitting next to her phone right now, waiting for it
Great
to come
trip.
on.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. But yeah, man, I look forward to that next discussion, Pan Africa, bro, because man, I'm telling you, on that one we can go 5 days talking about it. So, you know.
We most likely will. We'll schedule it for sometime, maybe like early December. Like I have a huge chunk of PTO in December,
Awesome.
so I'm definitely gonna have time for that. Maybe like the weekend of the 11th. I'll let you know though for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Well, thank you for having me, man. It was great.
All right, bro. No problem. Thanks again, and have a good night.
Thank you, you too, man.